Welcome back to GoDoBe EmPowerMe. I'm Joe Koskowski, your host, your guide, and your coach throughout this journey. In the last module, we began to explore the second foundation, that of belief, and we focused on the idea of what the heck is this thing? What does it mean to believe? We first discovered that belief requires that something be believed in, and second, that the belief in this something does not actually require that what we believe to be true. Another way of looking at this is just because we believe something, our belief in it doesn't mean it's true, valid, or real. Which of course then leads us to this realization that maybe what we currently believe or what we've always believed might be false. It might be wrong, or it may be totally off the mark. Today, we're going to go a little bit deeper into the second foundation of beliefs, and we're going to explore where beliefs come from. Our goal is by better understanding these beliefs, it will help us to first recognize where they come from, second, to validate whether or not they're real, and third, give us a pathway, an opportunity to change them if they're not right. Let's start by looking at the primary ways that beliefs get created in our world. And we're also going to look at the level of influence that each of these beliefs have. To do this, we're going to create a visual diagram with two axes. The first axis, or the y-axis, the vertical, represents the power or level of impact or degree of influence a belief has on us. The second axis, the x-axis, the horizontal, will represent time or duration. This will help us better understand the power, impact, or influence that a belief has on us over time. The very first contributor to our beliefs and to our belief systems is, of course, our parents. Yep, it's mom and dad. Now, to better understand how our parents or the people who raised us, how they instilled in us what we believe today, we need to first look at how a child learns. First, let's start by considering the idea that a newborn child is genetically pre-programmed to accumulate knowledge from any figure it sees as an authority. Now, what does this mean? Well, basically, it means that a child's brain is set up in such a way that it will automatically believe whatever it's told by its parents or its elders or the people around it. We know that from the moment of birth, that a child watches, touches, tastes, listens to, smells anything and everything around it. It's like a little sponge. It doesn't care what's out there. It just wants to know it, to experience it. Now let's say this child is a little older and it's learned how to communicate in words, to talk and to understand what he or she hears. So now let's imagine that this child asks us a question about why the sky is blue. We might respond with either, well, the sky is blue because it's a reflection of the water in the oceans, or we might say that the sky is blue because the light from the sun is scattered by tiny molecules of air in the Earth's atmosphere. The blue is scattered more because it travels in shorter, smaller wavelengths. Now, the first answer I gave you, the reflection of the Earth's oceans, is clearly wrong. And the second answer I gave you of the sunlight scattered by the molecules in the air is basically right. The point I'm trying to make here is that I could tell that young child anything I wanted to. They wouldn't argue. They would simply believe whatever answer we gave them. So why does this happen? From the moment a child is born, its brain, much like our own brains right now, are made up of billions and billions of neurons. These are little cells. They're special cells that like to talk to each other. However, the big difference between a child's brain and our brain right now is that the neurons in a child's brain are minimally and randomly connected or interconnected. They are like a bunch of spaghetti noodles tossed onto a plate. It's just one big jumble. Whereas the neurons in our brains are based on our experiences that we've had in life. So if we use our spaghetti analogy, what we're starting to do is take the ends of the spaghetti noodles or the spaghetti strands and stick them together in very particular and intentional ways. So the neurons in our brains have structure in a very specific, non-random way. So you see, for a child, from the moment that it's born, there just isn't enough time for that child to know, to learn, to experiment with everything around it. They don't understand the dangers of going too close to the cliff's edge or of swimming in deep water. They've never experienced it, at least not yet. When we tell them things like, don't go near the cliff's edge, or don't swim in the water alone, or don't touch the hot flame, this is how they learn about their world. In the early stages of a child's life, its brain will automatically accept and believe whatever it's told, even if what it's told is absolute garbage. A child's brain, at least as far as the neurons go, gets wired as it grows. And without that experiential wiring, the child has no point of reference, no significant history to recall. And because of this, anything that we tell a young child gets wired directly into their brain without any pushback or resistance. Think about this for a moment, that if we tell a child something that is nonsense, garbage, or completely false, and we say it early and often enough, then that child will grow up believing that what we told them is true. And then, as the child gets older, it begins to use, to apply, and to reference that nonsense that we taught them in its own world. And depending on the strength of that belief, it will then tend to pass on that same nonsense, that same garbage, to others around it. The Jesuit priests of old have a saying, "Give me the child for the first 7 years, and I will give you back the man or the woman." So when kids are young, we have the greatest opportunity to impact or influence them in a meaningful way. And as they get older, our level of influence over them diminishes rapidly. The second factor that affects our beliefs is the people that we hang out with. In a broader sense, it's our social circle, our friends, and our colleagues. So what happens here at this stage? Well, as we grow, we begin to build bonds as part of a broader group. And the bonding process requires alignment with this group. And by alignment, I mean that because we want to fit in with this group, we begin to accept and adopt the different beliefs based on the group perspective. Now, let me give you an example. Once a child starts going to school, away from their parents, whether it's preschool, junior kindergarten, or otherwise, once they're in this new environment, they start to interact with other kids in that environment. Eventually, the bonds and the interactions, the processes lead them to share ideas, thoughts, and experiences. And because the interactions are within a group around the same age and in the same social environment, they begin to experience a sort of a group thing. And because they interact as a group, they begin to believe the messages and experiences that are shared within that group. It's nothing new. It's basically what you and I believed when we were their age. And this goes on for a while until we get a little older, somewhere around our late 20s, maybe early 30s or so, when we hopefully become very responsible adults. But at this point, the effects that our peers and friends have on us starts to fade relatively quickly as well. Then comes another, even more powerful source that can and does influence what we believe all the time. This one is much more worrisome. The third source of influence on our belief systems, we're going to refer to as the media. Now, the media here includes any and all forms of information that we consume, that we allow in, and that we accept into our heads. This includes TV, radio, printed material, advertising, news sources, social media, of course, and any other type of mechanism or algorithm that feeds us a steady stream of information, regardless of whether it's software, hardware, or human-based. This final category represents a huge challenge for all of us at every age. In today's high-tech world, even young kids are being influenced by various types of media. Now, at first, this technology, this media, wasn't much of an issue. In fact, we might have even considered it a blessing because the goal of this tool or media was to keep us well informed, entertained, and broadly engaged. And once the tool designers realized that by understanding the human mind, they could make their tools even more addictive, then everything changed. This constant feeding of information to us that might be skewed, limited, or distorted, this is influencing us, it's affecting us, and it's even changing what we believe. Remember, the essence of learning anything, like the piano, rollerblading, skating, or whatever it is, it's all about practice. And practice is the idea of repetition. In order for our brain to retain anything, we need to repeat an activity or an experience over and over again until a new neural connection is formed. You know, the way we wire the spaghetti in our brain. That's when we become good at something. Or, in this case, for today's session, when we begin to believe strongly in something. Repetition is the key to that process. And this is what the new tools and the new medias are taking advantage of. Advertisers, influencers, social media platforms, algorithms, and AI, they all have the power and the ability to quickly and effectively repeat a message directed at us. The more we experience it, the more we begin to believe it. As a result of this, what we already believe tends to be reinforced by what we see, hear, and read. And if we don't already believe something, then we can be conditioned to begin to believe something new. But what if it's not us that's choosing what beliefs are meaningful, relevant, or important to us? What if it's someone else who is conditioning us to believe something that they want us to believe? And here's the trap. The first two areas that impact our beliefs, our parents and then our friends and colleagues, they tend to diminish over time. However, this third area, the media, is one that doesn't fade that much. It continues to affect our beliefs even as we move into our elderly years. In the previous module, we realized that what we believe may not actually be true. In this module, we've just discovered that maybe what we believe may have been implanted in us by some outside force that may not have our own best interest at heart. But remember why we're here. This is an achievement program. It's about creating the kind of life that we deserve to experience. We're not going to be moved, influenced, or manipulated by something or someone else's desires for us. Not anymore. We are taking charge of our world. We are designing our life by choice. And in order to do that, we must first understand the inner world that guides us. And that inner world is our world of beliefs and what we believe in. So that's it for today's session. Here's our takeaway activity. I want you to think about the tools that you use, the apps or the social media activities that you do on a regular basis. I want you to ask yourself a question. The first question is, how much time am I spending on them? Maybe track your usage, do some sort of a calculation that helps you understand how long you're on it. The next question that I want you to ask yourself is, does the tool, the app, or the platform, or even the influencer that you happen to be following, are they contributing to your future in a meaningful way? If so, how? Think hard about this question, as you are the only one who can answer this honestly. Whatever your reflections are on those two questions, be sure to write down your thoughts and your insights in your personal journal. So that brings us to the end of today's module. And for our final thought of the day, I want to share a quote with you from Carlos Castaneda, an American writer. He wrote, "We either make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves strong. The amount of work is the same." Until I see you next time, have an absolutely amazing day. See you very, very soon.